They've built a portfolio of over $2.75 million worth of real estate in just over 2 years that consists of 23 rental units.
His story is really cool because it was something he was just like, why not me? Kind of like, why can't I do this? And for 2.5 years to build financial freedom in 2.5 years.
I was working for a construction elevator company, and my job was to sell this equipment to people that were building hotels, building multifamily properties up and down the East Coast.
That strategy is allowing us to go buy other investments. So I think it's really cool to bring that up. What has been your biggest mistake in your real estate investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
So it was something that a starter home we could get into, and we could kind of make it our own without breaking the bank. Parents gave it to her. She had majority of her tenants were there for over 10 years.
And you're taking on the next phase of it, where what you're talking about here is almost like you're buying a business, right? I mean, it is real estate, but it's like a business within that real estate realm.
Yeah. And we're going to do 5 acres, and that would be 320 spots.
Do you plan to self-manage as you continue to grow this portfolio? Is there a point where you're going to hand it over to a property manager?
You know, if it was almost overheating, like you could change all the parameters right on your phone. And this is like 5 years ago.
You can learn on YouTube. Like, it's incredible. I mean, I'm still lost on what you're actually talking about, but like, it's amazing what you can learn by just doing the research.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode for you. Today, we had on special guest, Patrick McGrath, and he is a real estate investor who partners with his wife. They've built a portfolio of over $2.75 million worth of real estate in just over 2 years that consists of 23 rental units, cash flowing at over $10K a month. The 23-unit portfolio is made up of a 10-unit, a 6-unit, a 4-unit, a 3-unit. He has experience in seller financing, BRRRRs, 1031 exchanges, off-market deals, and using Deal Machine to send out postcards. Just a lot of creative ways to run his show. And he was able to quit his W-2 job in October of 2021.
Yeah. And I think he talked about, actually it was like $13K a month, and off 23 units. It's like an incredible number. And what he
just upped it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What he was able to do, one of the biggest things in his portfolio is he's buying properties to go along with the seller financing from investors who have been investing for a while. Maybe their properties are paid off. He's able to raise multiple rents in different properties by 60%, by 90%. So to be able to get in there and do renovations and force appreciate his 10-unit property, he mentioned was cash flowing, I believe, like $4,000 to $6,000 a month. I mean, that's incredible numbers to be able to do that on a small property like that.
So massive home run. It was $6,000. He's up to $6,000 cash flow.
So his story is really cool because it was something he was just like, why not me? Kind of like, why can't I do this? And for 2.5 years to build financial freedom in 2.5 years. I mean, that's what the name of the game is. Like, how we've been doing this for about 2 years, and we're not at that level. It's just cool to talk to people who have done it. And he's really humble and just like, yeah, this is my thing.
He's a perfect example of being a student of the game. He listened to Bigger Pockets. He read the books. He listened to Grant Cardone. And then instead of just taking the information and sitting on it for years, he just said, nope. Okay, cool. I'm going to do this. And just put his money where his mouth is. And it just, I don't know. It was an unbelievable story. And for 2.5 years, blew our minds, but he's just a really cool dude to talk to. I think you guys will all love this episode and take to this guy. He knows what he's doing. So.
He does. Absolutely. And they're at Rental Property Couple on Instagram. So check out their Instagram. I think they're just about to hit 10,000 followers. They're documenting their journey. They have their own podcast. So pretty cool stuff. Let's bring in Patrick and let him tell a story.
Let's do it. Patrick, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are thrilled to have you on the show. We were talking off camera before recording, and we've just heard a lot about you. We got the application to the show, and I know you have a podcast of your own, but just you have a super unique story that we want to share with everybody. So thanks for jumping on board and coming on the show today.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to talking with you guys and hopefully providing some insight to all the listeners out there.
Awesome, man. Well, if you could just start us off, I guess in the beginning, who you are, where you're from, and then how you got into the whole financial independent, retire early, and real estate movement.
Yeah, of course. So it's Patrick McGrath. I live in Westminster, Maryland, so about 45 minutes north of Baltimore. So to kind of take you back, I have a sales background. So I was in sales for over 10 years. And as anyone in a sales background, the harder you work, the more money you make. So that was always kind of grinded into me, with commissions and all of that. So over the last 5 years, I was working for a construction elevator company, and my job was to sell this equipment to people that were building hotels, building multifamily properties up and down the East Coast. So for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've been in the space of real estate and watching people spend hundreds of millions of dollars building, apartments. And I was like, well, I got to get into this, So kind of through all that, before that part of journey, I got into real estate, and I always knew I wanted to do real estate because I always saw like anyone who really had money or who had wealth or any sort of freedom owned some sort of real estate. And just like everybody else, I got the Rich Dad, Poor Dad audio book, and I would listen to it when I was doing sales calls. And it just made so much sense to me. I'm like, man, I've got to do this somehow, some way. So this is like during 2014, 2015. I mean, I really wanted to buy my first property, and I just didn't have the money. And I kept looking and looking and looking. And I went and probably looked at like 15, 20, 50 places. All of them in today's eyes would be a home run. But at the time, I'm like, no. And, so during this time, my wife and I, we got together, we bought our primary residence, and we started fixing that up. We got that as a foreclosure. So that was kind of my first real estate thing, is we bought a foreclosure property. And during this time, we decided to take out a HELOC on it, a home equity line of credit. And that's what gave me enough money to finally be able to have a down payment on my first investment property. So fast forward to 2017. So I was looking for like 4 years, not pulling the trigger, not taking action, finally been putting all these steps together. And a house 10 houses down from me on the same street went up for sale as a foreclosure. And I had been talking to my dad all this time about wanting to get into real estate, and he, didn't really believe me or whatever. So I asked him if he would go look at the house with me. And I said, hey, look, I'm buying this house. I just want your opinion. Just come and take a look. Everybody's got to get their old man's opinion when they're about to drop, 200 grand. So he came and looked at it with me, and he was like, you can buy this by yourself? And I was like, yes, sir, I sure can. And I'm like, I'm ready to put in an offer. And he said he would go in half with me because I had taken all the steps up to that point. Like I was ready. I could do it with or without him. And, we put in an offer, we got it. And that was kind of our, first investment property. Back in 2017, we bought a single family foreclosure for $175,000. And my dad, my wife, and myself, we worked on it. We did all the work ourselves for about 7 months. I mean, nights, weekends, there all the time. We put about $30,000 into it. And we were going to turn it into our first rental. Now, mind you, I'm living down the street. I've got a house that me and my wife live in. And we made this thing. We did every first investor's, number one thing everyone does is we over improve the property. And it was so nice. My wife's like, well, why don't we move into this one and rent out our house? So that's kind of what we ended up doing, is we moved into the investment property we bought because we made it too nice, and we turned around and rented out the house that we were living in as our primary. And that was kind of our first investment property, and how it all kind of got started, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really cool story. And like my question for you is about the foreclosure process here. When you bought your first property, what did you buy your primary residence for? And then how much money did you put into that to be able to pull out? It sounds like a significant amount of money. Like what was that process like?
Yeah. So this is 2013. So October 2012 is when we put our offer in. It was $195,000. Bank foreclosure. But the bank at that time, they were coming in and like fixing up a little bit of stuff. So there was like new carpet, there was new HVAC in there. So it wasn't completely trashed. It was just outdated. And then, we spent 4 years fixing it up, but I probably only put about $8,000 into it. We redid the hardwood floors. We changed out the cabinet doors, not actually the cabinets, put up a backsplash, redid the bathrooms, but tile. We didn't go crazy at this time. Like, no one was doing all those crazy tile surrounds and everything else. We're talking like vanities, light fixtures, some tile, and we were doing all the work ourselves, changing out trim. So I probably put about $8,000 into it over those years, and we were able to get a home equity line of credit for 45 grand.
Okay, got it. So basically, you did put some sweat equity into it over a period of time, but really that 4-year period of the just natural appreciation over that time span actually is what allowed you to pull money out. So that's
exactly.
That's a pretty cool strategy there. In fact, Ryan and I just pulled home equity lines of credit out on our primary residences. I was house hacking for a while. I'm not now, but that strategy is allowing us to go buy other investments. So I think it's really cool to bring that up for people who own their own home and maybe do work to it. What gave you the idea to get to buy a foreclosure in the first place, though? Because a lot of people that are looking for their first home or even their second or whatever, like that's not a place that they typically look. What gave you that mindset to go there?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to invest in real estate, and our thought process was that our first home wasn't going to be our forever home. So we were going to turn it into a rental anyways. And, we didn't have a lot of money at that time. I think I was making like 40 grand a year. I think my wife was bringing in like 25. We weren't even making that much money. So it was something that a starter home we could get into, and we could kind of make it our own without breaking the bank. And that would kind of propel us into, those next houses and those other things. And that's kind of what got us started into all that. I mean, the investment property, the first investment property that we bought, that's the one that kind of set us off into everything else. I mean, we did a HELOC on that one as well. And then we cash out refinance both of them to pay the HELOCs off. And then we sold both of them and 1031 exchanged them into an apartment building. So those two properties, like they set us up for forever for where we're at right now.
Patrick, let's talk about the strategy of this monopoly game that you're playing there, because there's a lot of investors that will talk about, well, you want to just get a bunch of duplexes and keep buying more. And then, eventually you'll have 20 and then you'll have 30 and 40. And then they'll bring in enough cash flow that you can leave your job or do whatever passion project or whatever you'd like to do. But we've talked to, I think, not necessarily more sophisticated, but just investors that really like to play this monopoly game that you're talking about, where you're actually buying these properties, you're doing improvements to them, you're waiting until the appreciation takes hold. Then you're either selling or 1031 exchanging them and turning 2 single families into an apartment complex, and then a 10 unit into a 50 unit and the 50 unit into 100. How did this come to be? And can you talk about your strategy to go that route? Because it seems like the best way to consolidate a portfolio.
Exactly. And, everybody talks about cash on cash return and your cash flow, but not a lot of people talk about return on equity. And I think that's what people need to look at the most is, the dollars that you have inside that property. Can they be used to make you more dollars? And, everybody knows about the HELOC and the Burr method and all of that. But it's how you can combine all of them together to really utilize the equity to its full potential. And my goal was always, I listened to Grant Cardone. I think like a lot of real estate investors out there, love him or hate him, he does have some good content and he has some good points. And I always wanted to kind of get to that 16 unit apartment building he was always talking about. And the only way I could figure out how to do that was to kind of scale up. Brandon Turner and all those guys say, buy a single family, get a duplex, a fourplex, an eightplex. And these guys have hundreds of units and, tens of millions of dollars. And if it's working for them, it can work for me. And that's kind of how I always thought about it. But just like everybody else, I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. But I was just taking action. I just went out there, found what I thought was a good deal. And it just happened to be a good time in the market, and was like, all right, well, I've got $100,000 in equity. Let me take out a line of credit and I'll use that to buy a triplex. And then kind of did the same thing. and kept going and going and going. And then it got to the point where I had an opportunity to buy a 10-unit apartment building and I needed $250,000. I didn't have $250,000. My lines of credit were all tapped out. So I decided to sell the 2 single families that I had because the market was crazy January last year. And I was like, I'll use that to buy this apartment building. And that's kind of has set me up like that. And now I look at every single asset as its best use. And is its best use in my possession, renting it out, or is its best use being sold, or, putting a line of credit on it, or whatever? Like, how do I maximize the asset that I have to its fullest potential? And sometimes that's selling it. Sometimes that's holding it. People, I think, a lot of times get emotionally attached because they have a lot of work that they put into these things. And they remember all the memories of them being there, fixing them up or buying it. And it was their first one and want to hold on to it. And that's the sentimental value is great. But at the end of the day, I've got big goals that I need to get to. And sometimes you have to, let some things go to really achieve those goals.
Cool. Can you, so give us a fast forward moment here. What's your portfolio look like today? And then, tell us the unit count, then how the properties are divided up, and then what the cash flow is monthly that it brings you.
Yeah, of course. So right now we have a triplex, a quadplex, a 10-unit apartment building. That's 9 residential units, 1 unit of commercial space. And then we just purchased a 6-unit apartment building in March. Currently, right now, the 10-unit cash flows $6,000 a month. The triplex cash flows $1,500. The fourplex cash flows $2,000, and the 6-unit right now it covers the note. We have 4 empty units. We're refinishing them, but when that's all done, that should cash flow right around $3,000. So that'll put us somewhere around $13,000 a month off of those 23 units.
And is that the including all of the expenses? These numbers are awesome. Like, and if so, how are you getting to those numbers? Because on a 10 unit, if you were to tell me that you can cash flow $6,000 a month, this 10 unit, I mean, like that's a cash cow right there. Like, what are the strategies you're employing, to do that, if that is the case?
All right. So for instance, I was running these numbers a little bit before we got on here because I knew you guys were going to ask all these great questions. So, I was able to raise the rent 65% on the fourplex.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. So when I bought it, they're 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments. When I bought it, they were being rented for $750 a month. I went in and now we get $1,250 on 2 of them. Then 2 of the other ones, they're the old farmhouse style. So I took the attics and I refinished them and turned them into a loft. So not a 3rd bedroom, but a den or, someone who wants an office or something like that. And I get $1,450 for them. It cost me about $3,000 to redo that attic space with flooring and electric and, drywall and all that. And, now I'm getting $5,400 a month from a property when I bought it was bringing in $3,200. So that's one example. The 10-unit apartment building, I've increased the rents by 90%. When I bought it, it was bringing in $7,200, and right now it's bringing in $13,800. And I still have 3 units that I can increase the rents on. I'll probably end up getting it over. It'll probably be bringing in over 15,000, and that'll put my cash flow right around like $8,000 when it's fully maximized.
Yeah, I was going to say the 15,000, like to take half of the income that it brings in and have that be cash flow, even that's really, really good. So that's awesome that you're able to get to that point. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and go ahead.
Good. And this probably ties into what you're going to say anyways, but can you talk us through some of the strategies used to I guess, force this, not really force appreciation, but like force the rents to be driven up? Like what are you doing to tweak these places that allows you to raise rents?
Or was it just owners that never raised them too? Like, was that part of the equation?
It is actually. So the last 3 properties that we've bought have all been off market from owners, who just didn't care. They either like, all right, we'll stay on the 10-unit apartment building. So this one was paid off. So it was a woman in her 70s. It was paid off. Her parents gave it to her. And she had majority of her tenants were there for over 10 years. I mean, they're paying, like I said, like $750 a month. And this is in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, like water, like right by the water, like waterfront properties. So it was insane. So what I did right off the bat when I bought the property is I went into everybody and I said, look, we own the property now. Here's what the market rents are. Here's where you're at. I'm not expecting you to come up. I understand this is not an A-class property. It's not fully renovated. And I'm not the type of person that's going to ask you to come up $400 or $500. I said, let me know all the things that are wrong with the property and let me know some of the things that you would like to have, whether it's a ceiling fan, a new vanity, some new floors, whatever. And then also what you can afford to pay if you would like to stay here and I take care of the things that you're asking me for. And I would give people like a week to go, hey, you figure out what you want, figure out what you can pay, and then we'll see if it works together. And just about everybody that decided to stay raised up $300 right off the bat from what they were paying. And then I said, and they started paying that right away. And then I said, over the next 6 months, I'll start taking care of the items that you asked me for. So they're paying me to then go in and fix up all the units and take care of all the things that I just asked them for. Like 2 people moved out and I completely renovated those units and got them up to market rents. So then now they're seeing what the 2 other units are looking like. They're seeing the market rents and that people are paying for it. So then it came time for the year to come up. And that's when I went to him and was like, look, we have one more increase. That's going to be, about $250. And then I'll put a 5% max increase in your lease from here on up. And that'll continue to get you to where you go. I said, but you guys are living in an area where the rents are so high and you were so low. I have to do at least 2 of these, but I've taken care of all the things you asked. I've kept up with the maintenance. I've done everything else. And that's how I was able to increase everything, keep everybody happy. I did give cash for keys to 2 people that it just wasn't working out, jiving right. And they left. And now I'm just finishing up those two units.
It's really interesting, this perspective here. I always love talking about real estate cycles, and not the cycles of properties of like an actual real estate cycle where properties go down in value and they come back up. I'm talking about like how the older generation owns properties, but the way that they manage them is very, very different from the younger generation. Because if you're 65, 70 years old and you've owned a property for 30, 40 years, one, it's probably paid off. So your tolerance for what these rents are is, you're just like, okay, if they're paying $1,000, but they can get 1,500, they're probably tired and don't feel like messing with it. And it's bringing them cash flow and they have limited expenses and they're like, screw it. But when they go to sell, for somebody like you who's trying to build their business up, there's always room for that improvement. I mean, right now it's so rare that anybody can even keep up with how much rents are going up. It's unfortunate for a lot of people too, that are getting priced out. But I think for the real estate investor side, even us, we put somebody in what we thought was the top of the market about 2 years ago, and we're able to get $150, $200 more because they just moved out. And we couldn't keep up if they were to stay, we wouldn't have been able to raise it $200. So it's interesting. Yep. Obviously, we're paying a property manager to fill it, so we're losing a month of cash flow. But I just find it interesting when you're buying new properties or buying properties from older seasoned investors, there's just always opportunity there almost every time. Right?
Yeah, I have one too. It seems that you said it's an off-market deal. So can you talk us through the systems and processes you have in place for finding and analyzing these deals out there? Because someone would kill to find a 10 unit like this.
Like somebody like us.
Kind of like, yeah.
Like us too.
Like these 2 guys. So yeah, walk us through that and like kind of, I guess the method to your madness.
Yeah. So the way this will be interesting. So how we found the last 3 off-market deals, besides the 10 unit, I'll get to that one, is by sending out postcards. I mean, literally, Deal Machine, you know, they always had the ads on Bigger Pockets. So I was like, hey, it's working for people. Let me download the app. Let me go buy a list on ListSource in my area, and I'll just start sending out postcards. I didn't change anything. Like literally, I did not say I'm a local investor. I just used the standard thing. I set it to send out every 3 weeks, and I did 8 of them in a row. And I just set it and forget it. And I got a few calls, and that's really how I got, the last 3 deals that I had were just from that.
So that's really cool. And so when you send this out, do you set we haven't used specifically Deal Machine in this capacity yet, but actually there's the guest before you mentioned the same thing, which is super cool. I didn't even know they had this feature where you could just blast out these, postcards. Can you talk to the criteria? Like, do you set specific criteria to send out? I'm like wondering how you potentially could have gotten like a 3 unit, 4 unit, and then all the way up to 10. Like, are you getting a mass of calls in from a variety of different types of potential properties? And then how do you organize those? How are you like attacking these calls and saying like, okay, here's what I can offer you? And I'm just curious about the whole scheme.
Yeah. So I'm extremely primitive. I basically went on the ListSource. I said, I want everything from a duplex up, but I set it to a minimum of 2,800 square feet. So I knew it was going to be like bigger, because sometimes, things are listed as a duplex when it's really only half of they're 2 single families, So I just set the criteria based on the square footage, made sure that it hadn't traded in at least 10 years. So it hadn't sold in at least 10 years. And that was really it. And I got like, I choose my zip codes that were close to me, the area that I wanted to invest in. And I got like 800 leads off of that. So then I put those into Deal Machine and looked them up myself and kind of saw the area, if it was something that I was really interested in or not. And that dwindled it down to about 300. And then that 300, I just blasted out. Now, mind you, out of those 300, I probably spent $1,500 like sending mailers out, and I got maybe like 6 calls. That's it. Like I wasn't getting a lot of calls, but I was able to close 3 deals from those 6 calls.
Dude, 50% close rate. That's incredible. I mean, it's not 50% on your whole, the whole pool,
the whole thing.
The 6 that called back, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I'm doing it in my local area. Like that's the first thing. Like when someone calls, I'm like, hey, this is Patrick. Like, oh, where's the property? Oh man, I live right down the street. Do you know where XYZ is?
Right.
Yeah, I'm right there, right behind the mall. Oh yeah, of course. Like, so
that personal touch is so important. That's so important, especially for somebody who's owned it, like you said, for more than 10 years. That local vibe like really gets people going.
Takes the barrier down, right?
Yeah, exactly. They don't think of you as a salesperson. They're like, this is a local neighborhood guy who's trying to do good for him and his family. Like, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm buying it. Like, I'm not going to sell it to somebody else. Like, I'm buying it. So if it makes sense for me to buy it, cool. But I'm not going to try to go flip it to somebody else to make $5,000. I want something long-term. I'm young. And I want them to sell it to me because I want them to see themselves in me, as a younger version of themselves. And like, they want to help me and I want to help them by buying their property they no longer want. So it's kind of like a win-win that way. So that's kind of the strategy on that. And that's what's kind of worked for us.
Yeah. I think it's incredible, man. It seems it's so simple, right? From the thought of it, right? Is okay. You listen to Bigger Pockets, you did some research, you found this company and you're like, oh, it's worked for other people. Let me try it. Most people go, okay, cool. Let me try it. and they never try it. It's going to taking the action, spending the money. People don't want to spend $1,500, but that $1,500 is paid for itself 10 times over. It's going to, you know what I mean? So it's a cool thing to hear someone to go and take action like a student of the game, right? And then you go implement it and look at you now, you're at 23 units. And I also want to kind of roll into this. You were talking about you potentially have a really interesting I believe it's another 7-unit deal that you're working on now. Can you dive into that and talk about kind of what the outlook is on that? I know you said it may happen, may not.
Yeah. So that one's another one from a postcard, the 7-unit, surprisingly enough. So this family owned like 100 rental properties in my area. And I actually own 2 of this guy's properties that they've sold off over the last like 15 years. So he sold them to another investor. I sent out postcards, bought them from that investor. And so then he calls me, and I've been trying to get in touch with this guy for a really long time. And I finally get in touch with him, and I'm like, look, I actually own 2 of your other properties that you had in your family for years. Like, I'd love to add a 3rd one, to the list. So this was back in like October. This guy goes to Florida every year because he's a snowbird. So I'm calling him like every 2 months during the winter time. And he's like, hey, as soon as I get back in May, we'll meet up. So May rolled around. He called me one day and asked if I could come meet him over at the property. I was like, of course, I can be there in 10 minutes. Went over there and we chatted for like an hour. He walked me around the whole property. We're talking. And interestingly enough, on that triplex I bought, when I went to refinance it, the zoning was wrong and I needed to get a certificate of use change. And the only way to do that was to prove it was like that prior to 1965. And this guy actually wrote a letter to the zoning board stating that when his grandfather bought it, it was a triplex. So I'm like, thank you for the letter that you wrote, for me. I got the zoning changed. Like, this whole kind of thing happened. So I'm like reeling it in the whole way. Like, dude, I appreciate it. I own 2 of your properties. Like, you've helped me out. Like, let's add another one to the list. So I sent him over an offer. He wants $750,000 for this thing. And I told him straight up, it's not worth it. I can't pay $750,000 for it. I know that's what you want. I said, the only way that I can pay $750,000 for it is if you owner finance it for 5 years and 100% goes towards the principal. Because when I did the math, the bank would probably lend like $640,000 on it. And after 5 years, I would owe $540,000 of like paying the interest and the principal and everything. If I paid him $750,000 for his property in 5 years and I paid him $3,000 a month, I would owe $540,000. So I'm like, I can give you $750,000 as long as 100% goes towards the principal, because I'll be right in the same way. So right now, that's kind of where the deal's at. He is thinking about it and talking with his attorney over on that one. But yeah, that's kind of how my mind worked with it. Like, if I can get to the same spot, whether I finance it or not, the bank's not going to loan that much to anyone. So, but I'll give it to you. You just have to work with me on the principal side.
Very strategic, man. And like not taking no for an answer. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this isn't going to work, but here's how it could work. And it's just kind of like making lemons out of lemonade, lemonade out of lemons.
I don't know, but I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. That was pretty shitty analogy. So we'll take that one out.
Well, you guys know, like everybody should know out there, on a commercial loan, you need to have 1.25% debt service. So the income has to be 125% of the debt service. So that's the max that the bank will loan on a property, unless you put more money down. So at the current rents that he was having, the max a bank would even loan on that thing at a 25-year amortization would be like $640,000. So I put all that together in my proposal too. I'm like, dude, at a 25-year amortization, you would get this. At a 20-year amortization, you would get this. Like, and that's the max any bank will do. because no one's going to put 35% down on your 7 unit that's bringing in $5,400 a month. Like,
so what's the structure of the 7 unit? And is there an RV and boat storage thing involved? Like, is that part of this deal?
That's something a little different. But the 7 unit is 3 1 bedrooms, 3 2 bedrooms, and 1 studio. And it's got its own parking. It's on Main Street, and it's got 10 parking spots in the back. He's kept it up really nice. I mean, brand new electric. Each unit has HVAC that's been put in the last 5 years. Like, it's really well kept. It's the last property that this family owns, and they've been in real estate for like 60 years. So it's like their baby.
Yeah, I get that. It makes sense. If they're kind of like sending off gift, they can't really let it go. What will the cash flow if you do get it at that 750?
Well, if it's $3,000 a month for the principal payment, interest, I would cash flow like $2,000. So it wouldn't be like a home run. But
sounds pretty good to us.
It would be a nice deal. But I mean, it wouldn't be like a smash home run in my eyes. But I'm just looking to continue to add, and I know not all my deals are going to be like a couple of the other ones that I gotta take some singles, some singles and some doubles. So yeah, but the RV boat storage, that's a deal where we found 16 acres that is in Stafford, Virginia, that we believe about 7 of it could be developed into RV and boat storage. And it's right now we're going through the zoning process. The zoning allows for boat storage, but it doesn't allow for RV storage. So, but there's a couple other places with that same zoning that allows it. So you have to get a certificate of use from the county zoning board. So we're having meetings to see if it's something that they would approve. But that is $65,000 an acre. And that's fencing, security system, electric, gravel, the whole 9. And we're going to do 5 acres, and that would be 320 spots. And those spots will rent between $125 and $140 a spot. And the occupancy right now for any of that stuff is 85% plus. So this thing would cash flow, it would bring in gross like $35,000 a month and would cash flow roughly like $25,000.
This is bananas. Insane. And you're like, I feel like you're just a testament to like whatever comes next, you're just tackling it. And you're just like, well, I got to go to the zoning board. I got to figure this out. I got to create this relationship with this guy. Like, and it's not like you had this long lineage of like real estate investing from what it sounds like in your family. You were just like, I want to do this, and then I'm going to go do it. And it's like pretty cool to just like build up 23 units and to have this continue to stack. And then you're taking on the next phase of it, where what you're talking about here is almost like you're buying a business, right? I mean, it is real estate, but it's like a business within that real estate realm.
Yeah, we're developing a business, really. I mean, so it's renting an asset, and the asset just happens to be a 15 by 45 square of gravel land surrounded by a fence. Like, there's no maintenance, there's not really anything. So like that would be crazy. Now, I didn't bring this deal up. I didn't go find this deal. We had someone on the podcast who was interested in something like this, who doesn't have the cash, and he brought it to me. And I was like, look, I'm in, I can 100% get the funds. Let's make this happen. This is a long-term play. So this is going to go into like the high risk, high reward area of, using the funds. And but the cool thing about it is we have a contingency to buy the land unless the zoning board approves our plan. So as soon as the zoning board approves it, we've got 60 days to close on the land. Bam. So we're not actually putting out any cash until like 100% can happen.
Very cool.
So that's kind of cool.
It's very cool. And it just goes to networking and building relationships, right? And you had someone on your podcast. Can you just remind listeners how long you've been investing in real estate?
since 2017, I guess, but really, I'd say November 2019 is when we like bought our first triplex and have really kicked it up. So we've done all this in, the last like 2.5 years.
Yeah. 2.5 years. And we're talking about, 24 units roughly. So there, for people listening, that is, and the numbers you're throwing out here are like true financial freedom numbers. They're not just like $100 a door, like, which at that rate, you'd be making like $2,000 a month total or $3,000 a month total. And for a lot of people, including us, that's not enough to live off of. So for you to be able to do this in 2.5, 3 years, it's just, the foresight's pretty incredible. And I know that you have a partnership with your spouse too. Can you talk about like how that partnership works and the roles that you play and how you've built this thing together?
100%. Basically in the beginning, my wife and I, we did all of the work ourselves. So I'm the one that finds the deal, analyzes, the deals. And then, those first couple of properties, man, we're in there painting, and she can grout tile. So I'm laying the tile, she's grouting, we're painting trim. Yeah. We're doing all that. She's doing the staging. And so basically like she would now, I find the deals and now I kind of manage everything. She takes care of all the bills, managing the tenants, all of that aspect. And then when it's time for us to rent them out, she'll come in, we have like a staging kit, we stage them, we take pictures, and then, I'll go ahead and post it up. And then she handles all the back end stuff, like scanning in all the documents, paying the taxes, making sure that all the landscaping and all that stuff's paid, all those things that I don't need to be worrying about. She handles that. And then I handle all of like the financing part and finding the deals and all, managing the contractors and all that. And that's kind of how our relationship and partnership has kind of balanced out. Because in the beginning, I mean, I don't know how many times we would fight over like who's going to be cutting in and who's going to be rolling the walls and all that, just like every other couple. I mean, yeah, you definitely get into fights and it's stressful and you're working late nights. But once you get past that point of those like first couple deals or first couple units, and you finally have enough cash to start, not shoestring budgeting everything, the stress definitely starts to alleviate a little bit. And then you can really make it a business and not just like a hobby business.
Yeah, absolutely. That leads me kind of to my next question. You mentioned the amount of units you have and you're self-managing. It sounds like you're doing a good job of that with splitting the roles between you and your wife. Do you plan to self-manage as you continue to grow this portfolio? Is there a point where you're going to hand it over to a property manager? Because we were self-managing, 7 units and we were like, nah, can't do it. Like we just didn't want to do it. I think that's more our personality, but like, sounds like you have a system built out. Will you continue to do it that way? Or are you going to try to be more hands-off in the future?
That is a great question. So the last 2 Januaries, I have called property management companies and had conversations with them. And so I look at it as, because of the amount of units I have, I can negotiate down to like a 7% management fee, and they'll do half a month's rent to place people. That's kind of where I can get right now. But I look at it and I go, all right, I'm bringing in $28,000 a month in rents. 7% of that is roughly $2,000. Do I get $2,000 worth of phone calls and headaches every month from my tenants? No. So right now it's not worth it.
Oh, we do.
So I'm not getting, $24,000 or $2,000 a month worth of headache phone calls from my tenants. But I do think once we hit probably 40 units, I'll definitely pass it off. It might be sooner. I did say 30. We're at 23 right now. So you never know. I might do it around 30, but I think it's going to be somewhere above 30 before 50. Property management will make sense. It's just kind of hard, because these are my babies, they're my little money trees. and I don't want anybody messing them up, but I understand, my time can be better spent doing other things. So
completely get it.
There's a balance.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk to or give any advice or tips for aspiring investors that are looking to get into partnerships? Maybe it is with a spouse, maybe with someone else, just like what's worked, what hasn't, and then how you've overcome things.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is you have to put everything on the table in the beginning, that this is a business relationship. Your friendship doesn't matter. Your marriage doesn't matter. This is a business relationship. No hard feelings, but we're going to make decisions based on the business. And we have to be able to separate our personal and professional, kind of friendship and relationship from that. And you have to get that. And I think a lot of people don't have that conversation until there's an issue, and they need to do that up front and make sure they're on the same page. And if you can't be on the same page in the beginning, you're not going to be on the same page when shit goes wrong, when shit goes bad, when you're losing money. So that's number one. Number two, if you're trying to find a partnership and you don't have the money, go find someone with money, and you be the hustle. You go out there, find the deals, find the good contractors, try to bring as much value. And what I'm saying, every other person has said out there a million freaking times, like, get it through your head. It's the simplest stuff that works. Like, bring value to other people. If you don't have the cash, find the deal. If you have the cash, find someone that has the deal. I mean, it's pretty simple. And that's what I think a lot of people overthink this whole thing. Like you were saying, you like my hat says, decide, commit, take action. It's super simple, man. Like, just go out there and start doing, and things will fall into place. You're either going to fall forward or you're going to fall backwards, but you're not going to fall in the same place twice. Like, right.
Yeah. I like that saying, and I like that hat too. I think, if I were and we're still rookies at this real estate investing game, it doesn't really matter how many units you have, but I still consider myself like a rookie compared to a lot of people. But if I were just getting started, like, the money is out there everywhere. You wouldn't believe how many places there are to find money. The deals are less so. So if I was new in the game, I would 100% you just learned your backyard. Like, who's to say that your area is like the best place to invest in real estate? Like, it may be a good place, right? But you know it better than 99%. And that's why you have your competitive advantage. Now, if you're in New York City or San Francisco or Seattle or Washington, D.C., like in the cities, it's harder to invest for sure. But if you know your area, you can competitively invest anywhere as long as you're the one that knows that area and is going to go finding the deal. So if I were new, I would go learn my market as best I possibly could and try to go find what looks like a good deal based on a criteria that you've heard from listening to podcasts like this. And then once you realize, okay, I have all these inflow of deals, the money is actually a lot easier to find than one would think.
I could not agree more. We've gone through hundreds of interviews, and at this point, it's like you realize what people are most conscious about, and it's their time. And like, the hardest thing is to sit down, analyze deals, go find it, research markets, and all the nine. If people approached us with a deal, we could find the money in 2 seconds. That's just what it is. And it's one of those things where that truly is, I think, can be someone's competitive advantage. And if we could give advice to someone to go back and when they're starting or right out of school or whatever it may be, if you can get incredible at finding and analyzing great deals, you'll either get cut into those deals, or you will be someone will give you a lump sum, 5-10 grand to give them the deal. And that goes into wholesaling and all that stuff, but really cool.
1,000%. I mean, for anyone who's just getting started, my biggest thing would be, you need to analyze 250, deals at a bare minimum, like in your market or the market that you plan on investing in. Like, every single thing that's on Zillow, every single thing that's on Craigslist, every single thing that's sold recently, you should analyze it, see what you should have paid for it, what you think it'd be worth, how much you think the rehab is, figure out what the rents are on that street. I mean, you need to know what the rents are within a 5-mile radius of your area, like the whole nine. You should know the colors, like the flooring, like everything. Is it carpet? Is it LVP? Like spend the time if you don't have the money now and get all that stuff figured out and be the expert. And then when that deal comes along, you are going to spot it right away and know everything. And I think that was the key takeaway for me is like when I looked at so many deals, but when I found the one, I was like, this is the one. And you don't let those ones pass by.
Yep. That's great advice. So I know we talked a lot about real estate and obviously we love that, but there's a lot of other investment vehicles and things to invest in the world today. You see a number of things from NFTs to cryptocurrency and just all that whole sphere. And I think it's something we haven't dove too deep in on. So I just want your thoughts. Can you give me your thoughts on cryptocurrency and then NFTs? And then if you've invested in any yourself?
Actually, real quick, before you go, I wanted to mention this. We haven't talked about this in several episodes, and we throw a minimal amount of money at cryptocurrency, but now it's really interesting what's happening on the internet. You had this like wave of people that were talking about cryptocurrency, how it's going to change the world, it's going to change everything. And then all of a sudden now everyone's hating on it because it had this major dip. I'm curious if understand better than us about the technology behind it. And if it's like, there's such like what's blowing in the wind today, what people are saying. And everyone that didn't like cryptocurrency is all of a sudden like, oh, I told you so. Like, and it's a shitty investment. And I don't know enough to even know anything about it. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe you know more than us.
You can start us at square one if you want, dude. What is an NFT? What is cryptocurrency? Like we get sort of it, but just give us your take on the whole thing and what education you have. Yeah.
So cryptocurrency is here to stay. For sure, 100%. The $1 trillion market cap, it was up to $3 trillion. But it's going to be the long-term projects that everybody says, it's the long-term projects, the projects that are changing the world, and they're going to have mass adoption. And they're the ones that have been around. Like, I started investing in crypto back in 2017. So I went through the euphoric ride of Bitcoin going from, 7,000 up to 20,000, back down to 3,000, and I actually started a mining company back in 2017 where I had about 50 graphics cards and I was mining Ethereum. Now, this is when Ethereum was $300. And I was making at the time roughly about 0.2 Ethereum a day, which was roughly about $60 off of all this. And I did that for roughly like 7-8 months. So my electric bill was about $600 a month with all this stuff going on.
You were making off $60 a day. That's pretty good. I mean,
it was not bad. The problem is we were moving from our investment property to our new house. And I had a computer room in my basement that I had all this stuff in there, and it was like 100 degrees. I mean, it was hot all the time. Our electric bill was crazy. And of course, at the time, I wasn't selling any of the crypto to pay the electric bill. I was just using my money from my job. So I was like, this crypto is going to be worth a ton. And the market went down, and it went from like making $60 a day to making I was spending $20 a day on electric. And my wife she did not believe it. She was like, I don't understand this computer room. Like, this is dumb. None of my friends understood. Like, everybody thought I was crazy. So when we went to move, my wife didn't want me to have it in the basement. So I was like, you know what? The market had went down. I was like, everyone's right. I'm not right. So I sold everything. So if I would have kept doing that, I mean, just the Ethereum that I mined alone would be worth roughly $250,000 right now. But I would be a millionaire for sure off of that. I mean, I bought Bitcoin at like $2,500. I had like 5 of them at one point. And I sold two at 10,000 and 2 at 13,000 last July, actually. So, I mean, I've been investing in crypto for a while. And the biggest thing I can say is when everyone else is panicking, like right now, dollar cost average in and keep buying. Like I had, I saw, just for instance, I sold 10 Ethereum back in December of 2020 when it was like $600, because it was down forever and it went up to 600, started going down again. And I was like, man, I've been through this. I held on for years and I stopped believing and I sold it. 4 months later, it went to 3,000. Like crazy,
right? And I think it capped out at four Gs at one point.
4 Gs. I sold 10 of them. I sold $6,000 and it was worth 80,000. Like Damn. 6 months later.
If you want to know what I did in my crypto world and how experienced I am, I bought Bitcoin when it was at like 14,000 and then sold it when it was at like 3. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
I was just like, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. And you know what? It's a testament to more so like, I just didn't know what I was doing. Like, and I was like, I also was just started investing. I was like 26 and I'm like, I'm trying to catch this wave and I didn't like, if you don't understand it, you're going to do dumb stuff like that. And I didn't even understand investing in general, let alone crypto.
So why do you think it's here to stay is A, and then B, can you take us through this mining operation? Like how the hell do you even learn how to do that? Like you're pumping circuit boards and like I have no clue what that even means. Yeah. You're like a mad scientist. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. One thing though. So the HELOC that I took out on our second primary residence, I actually invested 25,000 of that into crypto and lost all of it. So do not invest what you're not willing to lose, because that was a tough conversation to have with my wife when we're having our first investment property. And I convinced us to do a HELOC to buy more real estate and dumped it into crypto and lost it all.
It's like, hey, honey, where'd that 25K go? You're like, oh, I don't know.
It went into,
I guess I lost it.
internet money. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos. Everyone was talking about mining and, how you could make a bunch of money. And, I thought it was pretty cool. So I watched this guy called Voscoin and he showed you how to build, this computer mining rig. I'd never built a computer before, like nothing. And, he was like, here's the parts you buy, put all this together. And it was really easy. And I was like, this is way too freaking easy. And then I got kind of addicted and just started buying more and more and more and more and more. And all of a sudden I had like a whole room full. And it really wasn't that hard. And you just set it and forget it. Like you can have it on your phone. If one of your systems went down, like you could just restart it from your phone. So I would be out, I get an alert, restart. If it was almost overheating, like you could change all the parameters right on your phone. And this is like 5 years ago. So
amazing what you can learn on YouTube. Like it's incredible. I mean, I'm still lost on what you're actually talking about, but like, it's amazing what you can learn by just doing the research.
Yeah. Like what it would do?
Go ahead. Yeah. So basically the blockchain, all the transactions like in Bitcoin happen within a 10-minute block. So these miners are going and going and going, and all the transactions that happen in that 10 minutes, it has to calculate all of those transactions and all of the previous transactions. So they keep adding on to a block, and the miners get compensated for doing the mathematical problems. Just like when you swipe your credit card, there's a computer database that's doing all those transactions. That's what the miners are doing, but they're decentralized. So basically you are giving your computer power to, let's say, Discover card or whatever to help them do their transactions. And they get a little fee. The miners they get a little fee for giving their hashing power to help the block secure the transactions. And that's where the ledger's from. So that's why it's open. So they get their little piece. So that's what I was doing with the Ethereum network. I was helping, push the Ethereum transactions through. And because of that, I would get a little piece every time one of the blocks closed. And that's how these bigger miners, they make a lot of money, is because they're the database. They're the Amazon warehouses full of graphics cards and database centers, but they're decentralized all over the world, connecting to one network. So that's kind of how that works. But, there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum. That's huge. There's XRP that's in the news a lot right now. Ripple, which a lot of the banks actually use to send money across borders. So I know I'm not an expert in it. I've invested a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. I've made some money. But it's just an interesting space. It's something that, I try to allocate like 20% of my funds into. And
it's a lot,
yeah. If it hits, it hits, if I lose it, I lose it. But the great part about cash flow is it comes in every month. So,
that's what gets fun about this whole thing, dude. And, we can talk about crypto. You can talk about a lot of different types of investments, but once you have cash flow coming in, you can start playing in different fields. And I like that. And it's not, some people will bash it and say that's shiny object syndrome. And I don't think it is. I think it's so fun once you become an entrepreneur to like buy businesses and then buy into different things. And like some are fads, right? But, other ones can be sustainable, and you never know. You might find something that you're really good at, and like all your friends were against this mining thing, right? And they like didn't understand it, and you potentially could have made a shitload of money. Not saying you live and you learn, right? Like, but it goes. The main lesson I'm learning here is like trust yourself, right? Like you can do what you were doing if you just kind of stuck to it. Maybe don't spend the HELOC. That's one of the things to learn. But just thanks for peeling back the layers on that for us. I think it's super cool to talk about.
Yeah, and we haven't talked a lot about cryptocurrency, and just it's cool to talk with the seasoned investor who's seen, how real estate works and how there's just other avenues to make money. And I don't envision myself getting into cryptocurrency too heavily, but I do understand that there is a technology out there that's going to support the future. And I think that at one point, once I maybe understand more and learn it, it's definitely viable, especially for the next younger generation who really is like living and growing with the technology every single day. So,
and I think that's the biggest thing is that the younger generation, like these NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, you're going to be able to do real estate transactions with NFTs. Like I could take my 10-unit apartment building and turn it into 1,000 NFTs, like the deed. And I could sell that to 1,000 different people and have the cash flow pay everybody on a monthly basis who holds the NFT. Or like, let's say I didn't want to go to a title company to sell my property to you two guys. I could convert the deed into one NFT, transfer it to you guys, and then now you guys own the property and not me. And you can kind of get around like title companies and the middleman and different things like that. There has been one house that has sold as an NFT. I think it was in Florida. But there's all kinds of crazy things. Or like, imagine your favorite band sells a NFT package. There's 2,500 of them. And anyone who holds that NFT, anytime you're at a concert, if you show that, you get backstage and get to meet the band. That would be freaking cool, right? Or you get first dibs at the merch stand or whatever. Like there's different kind of cool things that holding this, NFT can do for you and be a part of. But like one example is my buddy, he's an artist. He told me about these ones called the Angry Ape Army. They were $400 a piece. So we bought two of them. We sold one for $10,000 like 2 months ago. $400 to $10,000 in like 4 months. We still have one. And we're going to hold on to that one. But like, where else can you turn 400 into 10,000, dude?
But here's
in like 4 months.
Like there has to be value attached to that. Like how, I guess this is probably
whatever somebody else is willing to pay. That's what
why would someone want to pay $10,000 for that thing? That you can look at online. I know. Does it provide some sort of access to this the specific one?
Yeah, it provides access to the metaverse game that they're building. So like that NFT is the character that you can play in the game. And there's only 2,000 of them, these characters. And by playing the game, you earn cryptocurrency, which earns money. And then you can even rent out your character to people. Like, so I don't know all of this. Like I just scratched the surface and he's like, hey, you got $400 or $500 to throw at this. And I'm like, sure. And we have lost a lot. Like we've not had a lot. We lose quite a few, but if you get a nice $10,000 winner, like that makes up for all the ones you took L's on. So, it's like one of those things, man. You just gotta, throw a little play money at risk and, hopefully you win.
Yeah, Patrick, I mean, I want to wind down the show here, but I think the point to all this is that there's people listening to the show that are trying to figure out what to do with their money. They make money. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to invest. They don't understand real estate, or they're learning real estate. They're learning other ways to create investments. There is a whole new world that just opened up to people in the cryptocurrency, NFT. If you want to be in the forefront of what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years, I mean, 15 is even far. There might be millions of other things. Knowledge is power. To have this stuff in your arsenal, to learn it, is the most powerful thing that you can do in order to get ahead of the next wave of how people are generating a lot of income. And that's really what I would say. It doesn't mean it's for everybody, because I can tell you right now, it's not for me. That doesn't mean I won't have some or play in this space, but carve out your own niche. And for some people listening, they're like, I haven't been able to find a real estate deal. Like, maybe I really want to dive into NFTs and crypto and become quote unquote master at that. And then that is a way that you can generate money. There's just so many ways to do it. You just have to kind of put yourself out there and figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Let's move to the core four. So core four is the second to last segment of our show. We ask all of our guests the same questions just to get to know you a little bit more and more personal.
Deeper.
Yeah, more personal level here. So we'll start you off easy. First question on the core four is, what is your favorite investing or business book and why?
So my favorite investing or business book is by Grant Cardone, and it's called Be Obsessed or Be Average. That book just resonated through me. Because he basically just said, it's okay to be obsessed. Like, it's the obsessed people that really go out there and crush their goals and make things happen. They put blinders on and they just focus and they make it happen. And that really resonated with me because I'm obsessed with real estate and with becoming financially free. And it just struck a chord with me. And I know some people love Grant, some people hate Grant, but that book really, changed the fire in me. There's a ton of other great business books, but mindset and really getting that fire going, that was it.
I think when we were having this conversation the other day, I was standing at the steps and I was saying, that quote by Conor McGregor, and he was I mentioned it to you. He said none of what I'm doing or what when he was in his prime is none of this is an accident. He's like, I don't love MMA or fighting. He's like, I'm literally obsessed with it. I have an obsession that has driven me to this point. And I was saying that there's a level of you and I that are kind of obsessed with finances and real estate, financial freedom. So not everyone has that, but if you do, follow it, right? I mean, why not? Unless it's an unhealthy obsession, which I don't think ours is. I think
our obsession is we don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
We want to do what we want when we want.
Yeah, a little obsession against the authority.
The man.
Yeah. But great. That's Grant Cardone's amazing. What he's done is incredible. So great book recommendation. And cool. Get to the second question.
Second question.
Whoa. Let me get in here.
You got this?
Oh yeah. Dude.
Okay.
Come on. I think you might have mentioned your biggest mistake, but the second question is, what has been your biggest mistake in your real estate investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
Biggest mistake in my real estate investing journey.
Well, it doesn't have to be real estate. It can just be your investing journey. But
investing journey. Yeah, there's a couple. I definitely think it would be selling all of my cryptocurrency and not hodling, holding on for dear life. That would definitely be my biggest investing mistake for sure. Selling, not holding.
Cool.
1,000%.
Completely understand.
Yeah.
Let's not dwell on.
No.
Let's move on. Yep. Number 3. If you were given a lump sum of $50K today, and we know everyone's on a different stage and different chapter in their book,
right? Just change that number.
Yeah, we might have to up it, but I don't know. But 50K today, if you were given, tax-free from Corey and I, we just cut you a check. How would you invest or spend that? Think of a pie chart and just, you can divvy it up however you want. What would you do with it?
50K. Let's see. I would probably do a dialer. I'd probably start a little, a company, a wholesaling company with a little dialer. thing, like do some batch leads, hire like a Filipino caller and just start calling for deals for me. Cause I don't have the time to do it, and postcards work okay. But I feel like I could invest probably 5 or 10 grand of that money into that and wholesale the deals that I don't need or want to other investors and find some bigger apartment deals that I'm looking for. So I would use that money specifically to try to go out and find bigger apartment deals and pay someone else to do that through my system. And that's probably what I would use that money for.
Cool. Great answer. The last question on the core 4 is, what do you want your legacy to be, Patrick? What do you like? Why do you get up every day? Why do you do what you do? Building a portfolio to the level that you have in 2.5 years is no easy task. So what keeps you going?
What keeps me going is the freedom. And I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, and not really have to ask if I can afford it and if I have the time to be able to do it. That's really my biggest thing. I had to do all that stuff, and I love being able. If one of my buddies texts me right now and says, "Hey, you want to go golfing tomorrow at 8 a.m.?" Hell yeah, the weather looks great. It's basically just the freedom, man. Just having the freedom to do what we want, when we want. Like I was saying, if one of my buddies called me up tomorrow to go golfing, I can do that. If we wanted to go on a trip to Nashville, we can do that. I don't have to ask for time off. I don't have to see if, someone can cover for me. Neither does she. Like, we have the freedom and ability to do that. And in regards to my legacy, I just want to prove to everybody and show everybody that just a regular guy and a regular couple can go out there and achieve their dreams and, build financial independence and financial freedom, whatever that means to you, whether that's $100,000 a year, whether that's $100,000 a month. Like, you can go out and do it. Just decide, commit, and take the action every day. And that's all I'm really trying to show. And that's what I want my legacy to be.
Love that. Really
love
that
it.
answer.
Love it. Decide, commit, take the action. You heard it here first, people. 2.5 years, financial freedom. What more could you ask for? So we've made it to the last drop.
Last drop is the last segment of the show. And this question is, knowing what you know now, if you could go back to maybe 18, 19, 20-year-old Patrick, what advice would you give him if you could go back in a time machine to give him some advice?
Yeah, I love this question. It would be to house hack. I can look back right now and tell you that if I would have known about house hacking or started at house hacking, I'd probably have over 100 units by now. You can go, duplex, triplex, quadplex, and have, almost 10 units in 3 years by doing it that way, and set yourself up for forever. Even if you never bought another piece of real estate after doing that for 2 or 3 years, like, you're set for life. You never have to pay a mortgage for the rest of your life, and you're good to go. So that would truly be it. If I could, shake my 20-year-old self and tell him, like, go house hack, but do it for 3 or 4 years, from 20 to 24 with all your buddies. And after that, buy your first primary house or your dream house or whatever. That would be the biggest piece. I house hacked from 26 to 29. I'm only 30 now, but it was the best decision I ever made. And I think about it now, just doing it, even at 30, doing it again, just to springboard, to get another property, rent this one out, and springboard my wealth even further. I'm not married or anything, so I could probably make it work. I think it's the best way for people to get started in real estate investing or continue their journey in real estate investing. So great answer. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and your story is really inspiring. I don't think you're a regular guy, but if you want to go with regular guy, we can call you that. But if somebody wants to reach out to you, they want to network, they want to learn more about you, your wife, your journey, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Yeah, you can hit us up on Instagram. It's Rental Property Couple on IG. We answer every inbox every Friday. I do Q&As so people can ask questions and all of that. And Danielle's on there every once in a while. She's kind of behind the scenes more often than not, but you'll see a couple photos of us on there. And then you can also go check out our podcast. It's called The Real FI Podcast. That's on Instagram and everywhere else, to kind of do the same thing as you guys, talk to other investors and try to teach people how to do it themselves. So
love it. Definitely check it out. You're learning from somebody who's done it. So I would definitely check out their podcast. And yeah, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on. It was really nice getting to know you. Your story is awesome.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys do. And I'm, so happy to be able to be a part of this and hopefully inspire some people out there to go out and crush their goals.
You certainly did. Thank you so much, Patrick. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the show and like what you heard, please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The more ratings we get, the more eyes we'll get on our show. And in turn, we'll be able to provide you all with high quality guests. It's simple. Open your podcast app, type in our podcast name, The Weekly Juice, click on reviews, and let us know what you think. Thanks so much and see you next week.